Hello and welcome to the Walt Weekly Podcast. My name is Walter Latham and I'm here with Ernest J. Robinson, better known as Sergeant Robinson. Anyway, today, y'all guys know that the Walt Weekly has to chime in on this Shannon Sharpe debacle. For lack of a better term, I'll call it debacle or scandal or, I can think of a lot of different terms, but the man's in trouble messing around with a white woman. So he should have been, much, much wiser, but we got a few things that we want to show you today to kind of, reinforce what's being said out there for those that may have missed it. But before we even proceed, I do want to say that there seems to be, for high profile black entertainers, athletes, this tendency for women associated with them to sue them. All right. I can tell you right now, before we proceed, just stick with me because you're going to enjoy this show. Is that when my son, my grandson, who was a high profile athlete at Penn State, and when they come into the statement, you get all these fans, they signing autographs, and, hey, it was just amazing to see them. Right. But I went to the dorm. This is his freshman year. He was enrolling. Well, he was already there because he was a football player. But I told him in the dorm, I said, look, get you one girlfriend, one, all right, and stay with her. And when you break up, make sure that it is amicable for both of you. Meaning, make sure you break up nice. Don't just stop calling the woman because these things can happen. And I do have to say now, I may be reaching at straws, but I do have some facts to back it up, is that there are a lot of opportunities out there when people know that, you're in the money, you're high profile, and it seems like black athletes and entertainers get the worst of it. But anyway, this show is about those guys. It seems like the black man is always, his Achilles heel is women. And that was the same thing with Samson. But anyway, I don't want to pontificate too much, all right? But let's start the show. And I said, this show is going to be about Shannon Sharpe and people like him that been caught. And they should know better. They should have had a grandfather like me. But anyway, Ernest laughing. Look at laughing. All right, but I'm going to start out with Shannon. Let's start out with Shannon Sharpe. And there's a clear pattern of racial disparity in the context of sexual complaints in athletics. Right? Black athletes, both male and female, by the way, female, are more likely to face negative outcomes, skepticism, and harsher treatment when involved in sexual complaints. And with that, I just want to turn it over to Ernest. What do you think about Shannon Sharpe, Ernest?
I love Shannon Sharpe as a player, football player. He's a HBCU grad. Or he's attended HBCU. I do believe he graduated from there as well. From Savannah State. I used to actually live in the Low Country.
You're Geechee. You're Geechee then.
Yeah, Geach Gullah. Took part in the culture. I wasn't born there, but anyways, and I love what he's doing on this podcast. I've always thought Shannon Sharpe has become more thoughtful in his words, in his movements, in his actions. I think his business is grown tremendously to where this particular incident may, obviously not knowing him personally, but does kind of seem kind of undermines the elevation in which he's brought himself to. I think to your point, I think it's important that we treat all individuals, all women, sexual partners with a level of grace and respect and things of that nature.
That's in an ideal world, Ernest.
No. But yes, ideally, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah,
believe that
yeah.
that's what we should do. That's what we should strive for, but also to be mindful. But one thing that we've all been taught is to be mindful of the company that you keep, and whether that is a friend you're just hanging out with, or a friend that you're going to be intimately involved with, or people
Well,
that you
he
just
met he
drink
met
with.
this lady in the gym who's originally her name was Jane Doe,
Uh-huh.
but I got her real name here. But go ahead, Ernest. I didn't mean
Oh
to
yeah, no,
interrupt
that's no
you.
problem. But yeah, but we're gonna be mindful of the company that you keep, and so a person's uh, their character is important, regardless of how you may be dealing with them. Even in business, you don't deal with individuals who may be have unsavory characteristics or anything that may compromise you in your business, right? In your status in life. And I think that this was probably potentially a misjudgment on Shannon's part.
Yeah, and she refused to sign an NDA. That
Right,
right there should have been a red flag right there for anybody with common sense. To me,
right.
to me.
Right, and then that's again when it comes down to athletes or anyone of any particular notoriety, an NDA is not actually uncommon
Right.
for the purposes of dating, for the purposes of intimacy, or even sometimes just pure conversation. I mean, sometimes
Yeah,
it's just,
yeah.
hey, I need to make sure that what I say to you is going to stay here, or I have legal recourse
Absolutely.
to being able to pursue you for violating this particular agreement. And I think that also it was really a mistake given the fact that this was presented and she didn't sign it, and then he proceeded on anyways. And hopefully I do believe that he would be able to recover from this, foresee this being a complete deterrence of his trajectory.
Okay, let's check this out, though, Ernest. Let's check this out, right? Or he was warned.
Warrant. Oh, okay.
I do want to start with Monique here.
When you and I,
It's different, baby. I'm grateful I'm not 56 and trying.
you trying to say that? What you trying to say?
I'm looking right at you.
I know
I'm
you looking at me.
I ain't backing down. You better take your old and somebody to love you.
Damn, no.
He live in a white community. He been around white people for over 30 years. He 15-year-old or 20-year-old. So here it is, he at the gym working out. He's showing up at the gym with them big old black legs.
Shannon Sharpe is fuming after Monique took direct shots at him during her comedy set, roasting him over his messy court drama with that OnlyFans model, who's now hitting him with a $50 million lawsuit.
I got to laugh, Ernest, because that was funny, man. She did. That was done back in 23, all right, where she warned the man. I mean, anybody would comment. That should have been taken under advisement, because I would have taken it under advisement and said, yeah, she about right, because it's common sense. It makes sense, right? That you have to be very careful. What do you think about that video, Ernest?
I mean, there's a of truth to that, but I think that the age component or whatever. I mean, we're talking about someone who's giving advice who's had obviously some questionable things within her own particular relationship.
Yeah, but she told the truth. He's 56 years old going out with 26-year-old women in their
Yeah.
low 20s. And this girl, Zuniga,
Hmm.
let me tell you, I got the correct spelling of her name here. Z as in zebra, Uniga. Zuniga. I got to look up where that name originated from.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
I can't see. And she was 19. They've been together 2 years. And he got no business, 56-year-old man, doing that. He doesn't. I mean, that's the only thing, my takeaway from this. And I know
I mean,
that.
I mean, again, I'm not. The thing was about what she was saying, and I know that the correlation is what happened. I think that there's a lot to take away when we're talking about levels of maturity, age appropriateness, as far as relationship and everything else goes. There's a lot with it with morals, ethics, and then also some people's religious beliefs, things of that nature that kind of get conflated in here. So what I was trying to do was just compartmentalize what she was saying, then relate it to his particular situation, so that way they can stay stay separate
Right, I got you.
the way that they need to. The differences between someone who, I mean, there's a lot of people who have different age gaps. Like a lot of people, most, I'm not gonna say most, I don't like putting numbers on things, but there are a number of individuals who have a number of years in between their ages. Some are closer, within 1, 2, or 3 years. Others have anywhere that's maybe between 5 and 10 years, and some may have a little bit more than that, where you're talking about maybe 15 and or 20 years. In this particular situation, this is over 30 years
Yeah.
of a difference. And actually nearly 40 years
Yeah.
of a difference. Closer to 40 years than
Yeah,
this.
because she was 19, and you take
Right.
40 years from 56. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we're talking about a great deal of time in between these two.
All
And
right.
but for adults, it's one of those things of like, would it have mattered if the young lady was 29, or would it matter if she was 49 and made the same allegations? I mean, so, and if the behaviors of Shannon Sharpe were egregious, then again, age doesn't matter. And if maturity, the presence of or the lack thereof, is a concern, then it wouldn't matter if the person was 19 or if the person was 49. Because at the end of the day, we're still talking about adults.
Yeah, but Ernest, don't you think there's a bigger dynamic here playing out? Because it appears to me that high-profile
Yes.
black men
Yes.
are being to me they're being targeted, or to me they're being targeted because I mean, there's no way around it.
Right. So
Okay.
going back to, we can go back to spoke off camera the other day about it with Jack Johnson. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Johnson had at one point in time was arrested for violating what was called the Mann Act, and because he had a relationship with his with a white girlfriend.
Now tell people for the audience, because I know a lot of them may not remember Jack Johnson.
Okay, first off, I wouldn't remember Jack Johnson.
Yeah, right, yeah. You talk about the early
Neither would
1900s.
you,
I
but
don't remember
yes,
Jack Johnson. No, I mean, but
yes,
in
yes.
reading
But
about him,
Jack Johnson was
he was
one
one of
of
the first. Yeah,
he was actually the first black heavyweight champion. Well, I mean, just be and fighting. So having a black person. This is talking about the turn of the century. You're talking about just after the 1900s.
yeah,
Having a black
yeah.
man enter into a ring and where he would. And facing against white men and beating them, and then being paid for it, and then the cherry on top, no pun intended, which further infuriated a lot of white people, was that he was sleeping with white women. And
Man,
so,
he was really brave back then to do that because it's against the law.
well, brave is one thing, brazen, where he had a disregard, I think was more appropriate for his because it was against all types of norms, societal norms, because he's a high profile boxer being seen with this white woman, and that has been seen as a sin, and a violation in many different cultures. But playing that out to today, to where you have this well-known black athlete who is now sleeping with a white woman, and the correlations as the level of vitriol that is being seen, because it's and the same excuses can be made.
Well, she was a white girl. She was a
Get you a
child.
black woman,
She was a
right? Why,
child.
huh?
She was a child. This white girl was 19 when he met her.
So hold on. So that's one thing I don't like. I mean, and not you personally or anything like that. I don't like when we say we attribute people who are 19 years of age as children, or 20 years of
I
age, or
just use
22
another
year.
term, inexperience,
No.
and
I get, no, and all of
that's
those
what I'm
things are
talking
fair.
about. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
right.
was
No.
taking advantage of her to me.
No. Well, see, that part's not fair,
Yeah, well,
because as a
56
person
years
who,
old, going with
hold on,
somebody 19, that
hold
doesn't
on.
fit. That doesn't fit into I'm
Wait,
trying to
wait.
put
Those are two
a
different.
round square into a square into a round hole.
Well,
To me, that's
this
what
one I'm
he's
saying.
trying to do.
There's two different things when we're talking about, because one, now you have to question the person's, now you're questioning their competency
No,
and
I'm
other.
not questioning it. I'm questioning their judging, the decision making.
The
That's what I'm
decision.
questioning.
I get it, but here's the thing though. As someone, so here's the thing. Now, granted, everyone's not me, but I'm not the only one who were able to join the military at the age of 17, or
Right,
were able
right,
to
right.
join the military at the age of 18 without parental consent, right? An 18-year-olds who are able to go to college, or 18-year-olds who are able to start their own business, or 18-year-olds who are able to, or who are able to commit crimes, or do anything that may be deviant in what may be considered a societal norm or an expectation of their potential.
All right, I understand. I
Right.
understand.
So
Okay.
so what I'm saying is that while yes, we would have an expectation for the person who is the elder in this situation, and I mean it in both senses of the fact of his age as well as his statesman, that he would have a sense of responsibility to not engage with someone that is so far his junior, right? So that part is understandable.
All
But
right,
at the
okay.
same time, there's a personal responsibility that a person who is 19 years of age that they have in their decision making. And because so what it would seem is that because when you're unable to make your own decision, that's the reason why we have statute clauses. If you're under the age of 17, under the age of 16, is because you do not have the maturity to being able to make the decision, and therefore taking advantage makes someone else, and it infers that this person is a predator who preyed on someone else's vulnerability.
Well, I got married when I was 16 years old, and my mother had to sign for me.
Okay.
All right? So I'm just saying. And I
But
was
had you
doing
got
what I
married at
thought was the right
19,
thing. Yeah, that wouldn't need it.
you
I wouldn't
wouldn't
need
need
any
it.
approval. 18 and up, you
Exactly.
good. You're a grown-ass woman. Grown-ass person.
And that's the point, is that at 19, she's grown.
And even if you take issue with their choices and what they've done, you can still sit up there and look at them and say they're a friend.
Because Stephen A., he didn't stand with Shannon Sharpe like he stood with Jay-Z. When he heard about Jay-Z, he said, the guy I know, this is not true. When it came to Shannon, he was like, I wasn't there.
My date your age. Well, I want to date my wage.
With a big black baby, But, it seems to me, as I said earlier in the show, is that, they got a target. Successful black men have a target on their back. All right. Outside of athletics, you can look at the mayor of New York and look what he went through.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Even though I can't recall his name right now. And I live in New York.
Eric Adams?
Yeah, Mayor Adams.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, Mayor Adams is another guy. He's a high profile person because he's the mayor of the biggest city in the world, New York City. Mm-hmm. And look what they did to him, bringing charges. This is one thing I think, Trump doesn't do anything for free. There has to be, I do for you, you do for me. So yes. He had the guy, dropped the U.S. District Attorney for the Southern District, dropped the charges because Trump said, no, I don't, leave him alone. And they did it because he controls it anyway, or they would have been fired. But, he had a godfather in Trump to get off. Otherwise, they would have persecuted him. And he has only done what other people do in a high position, in a political position. Look at Trump. He just got a $400 million plane. So why are you going to mess with Mayor Adams because he's been upgraded on flights and had some dinner? Give me a break. But that's an aside, okay? But let's get back on topic. Yeah. Ernest, tell me about that video we just saw.
So I think that Mace's take on the fact of how, Stephen A. did not come to the defense of Shannon Sharpe, and just from a character standpoint, right? Because that in itself is telling. Here's a person who is a co-host on your show, or was a co-host on your show, that you've known for years, once when he was a player, and then as an analyst, now podcaster, so forth and so on. And you don't say anything. But that makes sense. Jay-Z has a different type of allure and is in a different status, and he is not a contemporary. Shannon Sharpe is. Shannon Sharpe is an analyst. Shannon Sharpe is also a podcaster whose podcast is bigger than Stephen A's and is raking, has more ratings and things of that nature. So Shannon Sharpe is competition. And so therefore, if Stephen A. is able to get rid of his competition, or at least not elevate him or provide cover for him, then to me, it seems it's advantageous for Stephen A. to take that type of position.
I've wondered about that, whether there was some jealousy on Stephen A.'s part, because Shannon was in the process of signing a big contract with Disney, $100 million contract.
Yep.
And now it's on hold.
Yep. That always happens. That always happens when someone is getting ready to step into a new threshold. That $100 million contract is going to, I think, or surpass the current contract that Stephen A has.
Yeah.
So that means, and Stephen A obviously has been an analyst for a number of years prior to Shannon, because again, Shannon was in the league when Stephen A became an analyst for ESPN. So it's taken him 30 years to get to where he's at right now, where it's only taken Shannon 10 or 15 years to get to this particular level, to where he's, in the potential of signing a $100 million contract. And Disney obviously is the parent company of ESPN, so therefore his co-host is now equal and or surpassing him in a less amount of time, along with all the other accolades of being an athlete, being a Hall of Famer, playing in the NFL, have a brother who's now going to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's just it can be too much. So when you're below my level, it's easier to throw a hand out and and help you out, or I'm putting you on to this, or whatever the case may be. But the moment that someone starts to equal and or surpass you, that type of real love or genuine care for another person or being is different. And I think that this kind of shows that he didn't have that. Because at the end of the day, I don't believe Shannon Sharpe had done anything that was illegal.
Yeah, because she's suing for $50 million.
Yeah, he's suing for $50 million because he got a contract for 100. He's suing for $50 million because the one podcast that he had with Cat Williams pulled in almost $10 million.
Okay, but
Suing him for $50 million so that way when the $50 million that's the spaghetti being thrown at the wall.
All right, now I'm not being negative, all right, with women, but that's like, can you imagine with $50 million? You paid $50 million to have sex with this girl. That's just it. $50 million. He hasn't paid it yet, but that's what I understand. Y'all got to fact check me. Y'all got to fact check me. Okay, listen, fact check me. All right, that there was an offer made by Shannon's lawyer of $10 million, and they just nope. Y'all guys go fact check that because I did read it. Okay, as to its validity, I'm going to double check, but I did want to throw that out there to the audience so that they can check on that. There was a settlement offer made of $10 million, and apparently they don't want that.
And that very well, let me see.
Now, while Ernest is checking this, I do want to take the time to just talk about, a little history about Shannon Sharpe. Okay. All right, in 2023, Michelle Evans, who was a former girlfriend of Shannon Sharpe, filed a defamation lawsuit against him in New York, also alleging sexual assault during their dating period back in 2010. All right, and that was settled. Fox settled directly with that complainant, or plaintiff rather. They paid her off. Okay. But then again, that's just leading up to some type of trend. This is something no, this is in the office, and the lady at Fox accused him of choking her. Now, how you going to choke somebody in the studio? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And sexual assault, because he's choking her. And I don't see that. But she got paid. But that only demonstrates to me that, and it's not women, the ladies that listen to this show, I am not generalizing per se, but it's just an indication that women with high-profile athletes, in particular, bring more lawsuits. And I do have some stats on that, so let me get to it here. We're going to be looking for further developments, and as they come, we may or may not include it in our show. Now, the Walt Weekly mission is not to cover athletics and entertainment, all right? But we shifted a little bit here because there's some lessons that need to be learned by people, especially male high-profile athletes. Get a girlfriend, get that one, and just stay with her. But make sure you get an NDA signed. If a person refuses to sign an NDA, then they're leaving the door open to sue you. So if they don't sign an NDA, you move on. You're young, so just forget about it. People, please subscribe, listen, comment. We need y'all guys not to send me messages or a messenger messages and say, oh, great job, I liked it, blah, blah, blah. Put it in the comments, please. We love y'all guys. But you got anything to add, Ernest, before we close the show off?
So this, not necessarily just in, but also that's been out there in the last couple of days. Byron Scott, former Lakers player and coach, is accused of sexual assaulting a 15-year-old in 1987.
Wow. How old was he in 87, I guess?
In 87, he would have been 26 years old. But they're saying that he was in a locker room. He took her shirt off, trying to force her to perform sodomy, which none of it occurred, which didn't occur, but there's more on that. But it's just to kind of emphasize the point where we kind of led into earlier, not citing fault or no fault of anyone that we're discussing, but there is an emphasis of being able to kind of going after individuals Black athletes, and then tying them to some sort of sexually deviant behavior. And that's been something that's been going on for centuries, whereas in many cases, a lot of it is not true. So I'm not going to ever say that none of it is true. But again, in the most probably infamous situation was Emmett Till, where the mere whistling or alleged whistling at a white woman led to his lynching. And so while lynching itself has been outlawed and is illegal, the financial lynching, the character lynchings still prevail under the same catalyst.
I want to say that Shannon Sharpe, where was Shannon Sharpe from?
Mississippi.
Now, Mississippi, one of the poorest states in the world, in the country.
Yeah.
They only have them fat girls down there. To understand, Shannon likes, I'm not painting everybody with a broad brush, but there's a lot of heavy set women. So Shannon Sharpe apparently likes these skinny women now. So Zuniga, whatever her name is, from what I understand, she doesn't even weigh close to 100 pounds. And he want to give her some breast implants. I don't know.
I mean, if somebody being in shape is a detraction for, I don't think that we know enough about who he's dated before to actually draw to be so conclusory.
Yeah. But he was in the gym, so
yeah, he's in the gym. So I'm sure that he would prefer to have somebody who was also likes to maintain their health as well.
She was the only one? 19?
Say that again?
19-year-old girl?
I mean, look, when some people are looking at, which is one thing that's interesting about attraction, right? Because when you look at some people, you don't necessarily know how old they are. Now, the thing is that for the most part, you can definitely tell that somebody is young or somebody is mature or elder, but you may not necessarily know how old they are. Now, some people who have youthful features or more mature features, it's difficult in being able to tell. So yes, obviously,
when he found out, he should have taken action right at that time. I'm quite
well,
sure.
His again, and my friend, let me get back to I do want to say this one piece about the $10 million. So the $10 million offer was made. Now, part of the reason why the offer was made was because it would have prevented a lot of the details of their relationship from coming out.
Yeah,
meaning that
messages and all that.
Messages, right? All of that. And so the thing is that when you have a consensual interaction with somebody, regardless of whatever it is that you do, you like, whatever, all of those things are being described, those conversations or whatever the case may be. You don't necessarily want your family to know about those things. You don't want your children to know about those things. What you do behind closed doors, you want to keep it behind closed doors. That's the reason why you did it behind closed doors. Right. If not, then you would have been some type of pornographic star and you would have released it. So part of that was to being able to conceal that, not necessarily because the individual was guilty of something. It was to preserve their privacy. And in the midst of the fact that I'm generating X number of dollars for my podcast, I got $100 million deal on the table, whatever case may be. I failed to make sure that you didn't. I should make sure you signed this NDA. Then that's a $10 million hit I'm willing to take, to being able to preserve my privacy and to move on with my life.
Well, it seemed to be like a unidentified industry wherein, people are suing and they're making this money, you're churning and all that kind of stuff. It appears that way to me. Because every time I turn around, a college football player is charged, or, some other high-profile athlete or entertainer is charged. It's like an industry. You can't trust anybody. I mean, I'm not ruling out that certain things didn't happen, but with the frequency that they're coming out on black successful athletes and entertainers,
Yeah.
that's just unusual. It's just unusual. I mean, because everybody's looking for a dollar, I guess, and I'm not going to say that none of this is true, but I have my doubts and I'm skeptical, put it that
Right.
way. Okay? And I'll leave it at that. All right, people. So please like, share, follow. Drop us an email at thewaltweekly@gmail.com. Okay? You can also find our Facebook page, which we love our Facebook page. All of our material goes to Facebook also, even though we go to all major platforms. And we have our own YouTube channel. So y'all guys look forward to those episodes coming out in the next couple of weeks. But we appreciate your patronage. I mean, your likes, your comments, your follows and subscriptions. We love it. We love it. And don't forget, again, I want to point out our YouTube channel is growing. The Walt Weekly Podcast on YouTube. Check it out. That way you can see Ernest and you can see me and you can see the expressions on my face when he tries to get the best of me. I had to throw that in. You know me, Ernest. You know I'm going to say something, right?
At all.